You're driving nice cars, wearing nice clothes. Your kids are in a great school. Your wife's living in a great house. I mean, for all intents and purpose, your life is amazing. And yet for some reason, you still feel so chained to your business. I get that. For the first 6 years of my marriage, I could not seem to get out of the way of working 10, 12, and even 14-hour days in the name of continuing to build our life. The problem is I really wasn't building our life. And I only began to recognize that as I started to feel more and more tension every single night I walked through the front door of my own home. In this video, in this episode today, I'm going to show you why so many elite founders and entrepreneurs feel stuck even after they've made it, even after they've achieved their vision or maybe some big stage of it. I want to help show you that freedom isn't just a systems problem, but it's a home problem. And I want to unpack a couple of key things for you. Number one, that there is absolutely a hidden trade-off between chasing success and neglecting your family. Two, I want to show you why so many men avoid leadership where it matters most. And three, I want to help to show you what you can do starting this week to buy back your time, to buy back your true freedom without sacrificing your marriage, your fatherhood, or your soul, and without ruining your business in the process. So if you are tired of success that still feels heavy, this is for you. Men of greatness, rise and stand tall. Look, as I shared with you earlier, I feel like so many founders and entrepreneurs, and really even just successful businessmen in general, we buy into this lie that I'm doing this for them being our family, them being our wife and our kids. The reality of the matter is so often on this journey to achieve professional success, to build the business of our dreams, to achieve this vision that maybe even God himself has given us, we end up giving our family our leftovers. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There's definitely times and seasons in which we do sacrifice time with our families in order to continue to build that business. But that's got to be in alignment with and an agreement with those that we are sacrificing, namely our family. So I had this insane conversation with a gentleman just this last week. So I was in Salt Lake City, actually just before going to Salt Lake City. I was there for a business conference. I got to speak from stage. It was really cool. But about a week and a half before I went to the conference, I get an email randomly from this guy. I'm connected him on LinkedIn. We're part of a similar industry. And he reaches out to me and he says, man, I got a hold of your book, Wounds, which, by the way, if you've never read my book, Wounds, How Hurt, Heartache, and Tragedy Become the Keys to Unlocking Greatness, you should check it out. It is my memoir. It's 9 pivotal moments in my life, really key wounds, either that I incurred as the result of something self-inflicted or something that others inflicted upon me, and really just my journey through those things. And I believe it's so relatable to the high performer's journey today. Anyway, so, and I'll put a link to that down in the show notes and in the description. He reached out to me and he said, hey man, he says, I grabbed a copy of your book. He goes, and I was just blown away. I couldn't believe how powerful, how vulnerable and authentic it was. But also he says, I just related so much. He says, I'm going to be at the conference too. He says, if you're there, he says, I'd love to connect for a little bit of time. And so I'm always appreciative and humbled when somebody reaches out and says that. And I'm like, absolutely, we'll find some time. Anyway, so we end up connecting at the conference the second day. We go sit down in this room in private. It's just the two of us there, and grab a couple couches. And he proceeds to just share with me this gnarly story. This story of him being married to the love of his life, having 2 sons that he loved so dearly, and he was building multiple businesses. He actually had a really successful business in another industry that he exited from, and did really well, and invested into another business, was building that business. And one day, seemingly out of the blue, his wife came to the office and said, "Hey, I want a divorce." And he said it threw him for a loop, which obviously in hindsight, as he's looked back on it, he saw the signs and there were patterns. But his wife wanted to leave him. He had worked so hard to land this incredible woman, to have two amazing sons, to build these businesses so he could provide a life for his family. And she was over it. And what he began to realize, by the way, they would get a divorce. He would find out some other devastating news in the midst of that. And he began to evaluate his life, take stock on where he was at that point in his life, how he got to the place that he was in. And interestingly enough, the next night I would meet his youngest son, who's in his late 20s, was on his own brutal journey of wounds, but now healing greatly from them. And he would back up the fact of what this guy shared with me. And it was, he was an absent husband. He was an absent father. His son would say at times he thought his dad was a total asshole because he wasn't there for him. Sure, he was providing for them in incredible ways. They had a beautiful home, a second home. They had all kinds of fun toys, which is just so relatable to my own life. I mean, I was there too, and I was just leaning in, listening to this guy tell this story. And he was broken over the fact that he found himself in a place where on one hand, he always wanted to be, which was owning a successful company, multiple successful companies. And yet he found himself also with no one to enjoy it with. He found himself in a place where the people that mattered most to him didn't want to have anything to do with him. And what he would come to recognize amongst so many other things is his wife didn't want another house. His wife didn't want more vacations. She wanted more of him. Men, work hard in your business. Build an incredible life for your wife and your kids. But just remember, your wife and your kids want you. They don't want what you can provide. They want more of you, even if that means less of the stuff that you provide. What we don't recognize a lot of times, you guys, is there is a significant cost to chasing freedom. You see, when we get into this journey of entrepreneurship, which is totally overglorified. I mean, like, I love my business. I love what I do. I'm sure if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a founder, hopefully you love what you do. But you know, so many people, they talk about how hard it is, but they talk about, man, you get all this freedom, you get all this time, you're your own boss, you get to serve who you want, you get to do what you want, you get to say what you want. And so we dive in with that mindset. We think that what it's going to cost us to ultimately have the business and life of our dreams is time, stress, energy, and maybe some early financial investment. And all those things are true. It is going to cost us a lot of time. It is going to give us a lot of stress. It is going to take a lot of energy and financial investment. But what people often don't guide us on is that this journey of entrepreneurship, this journey to build a business, especially if you want to be elite, if you want to be great at what you do, What people often don't tell you is it is going to cost you presence, intimacy, and connection with those that love you the most, and I believe that you love the most. And I'll bet you start to see this because the more stressed out you get, which then creates tension at home, the more that you escape back to work because you're unsure of how to even handle what's going on at home anymore. You feel like you can control the business even when it's out of control because you clearly can't control what's happening at home. You think you're doing the right things. You're even maybe trying to do the right things. You may be even doing the right things from time to time, but it's just not enough for your wife. It's just not enough for your kids. You start to see that you find yourself more comfortable managing your team. You start to find yourself more comfortable engaging with your clients than you do nurturing your marriage and your fatherhood. Let me ask you this question. Are you buying your family's future with today's absence? You see, you think that you're buying your family's future in such a way that is going to require you to just semi-sacrifice absence or presence today. But the reality of the matter is that you are destroying your family's future with today's absence. You're not buying your family's future. You're destroying it. What is the point of working so hard to build a future that you don't get to be a part of? This is a question that I had to constantly ask myself as I was building my business early on because it was freaking hard. I was finding myself having to travel a lot more. I mean, when somebody said, hey, will you come and speak here? And then 3 days later, will you come and speak here? I was like, yep. Hey, will you do this extra thing for me? Yes, you're going to have to work through the night a couple of times from the couch. I'm like, yep, because I needed to put food on the table. And often, especially early on, my wife was very much in agreement with those things. But I started to lose my grasp. I started to lose control of my ability to be able to control that time. And I found myself saying yes to more and doing more. And because my early intention, my early purpose, my early vision was to build a future for my family, I felt like I was still doing that. Just like my new friend felt like he was building multiple businesses until he realized he no longer had a wife and kids to build for. Men, we are, as I say so often, standing in a gap between who we are now and ultimately who God has created us to be. We're looking at this chasm and we need to understand how to close down this gap to achieve true freedom. Because that's ultimately, there's a guy that I follow on X that I love so much. His name is Justin Welsh. You should go follow him. I'll put a link to his X profile in the show notes because that's where he creates the most content. And I love the fact that he's built an incredible business protecting his time and freedom more than anything. And as the result of that, he seems to have an incredibly fruitful life and he's built an incredibly successful business. He's doing like $4 or $5 million a year as a solopreneur. And he only works like 30 hours a week. And he's not selling magic potion. It's fascinating and phenomenal. And there's very few people that I see talking in that way. But he's realized that freedom is everything. That being enslaved to my business is no business at all. I'd rather just go do a W-2 job where I can clock in and clock out and take a paycheck. Why suffer for the sake of something that I'm never going to get to enjoy? Even if I love doing the thing is going to eventually destroy my family and maybe even me in the process. So I want to look at this as I try to as often as possible through this GAP framework, grounded in faith, authentic in action, and purposeful in pursuit. And through that framework, I just want to help you see that there's a better way to reframe and even reveal your intentions and your actions in order to do two things. In order to continue to build the successful business and be the entrepreneur of greatness that you desire, because I definitely want that for you. I want that for myself, but also to ensure that your family, your wife and your kids are there every step of the way to enjoy it with you, and they are bought into it all along. Both of those are possible if we follow a framework like this. And it starts with being grounded in faith. And this is very simple. It's very practical. And then I'm going to give you some action steps, by the way. So just sit tight. It's not about just walking you through this gap theory and framework, but it's about giving you some practical action steps. So that's going to come. So just sit tight for just another couple of minutes here. But this is really important. We must start out every single day, every week, every month, every new year, every time we recast vision, every time we intend to go pursue a new goal, we must start out by regrounding ourselves in our faith. And as it relates to this idea of ensuring that we're pursuing real freedom and we're not becoming enslaved to the business that we're building, to the career that we're building, we must remind ourselves of one key thing. Your worth is not tied to your output. Now, the Bible is very clear that we are called to provide for our families. And so we must do what it takes to provide necessary means of sustenance for our family. Whatever that's going to take. But too often when we're building businesses, we get caught up in building the business, and that becomes our identity. The level of success I achieve, the role that or title that I attain, the amount of money that I'm able to earn and accumulate, the stuff that I get to show off and enjoy. Those can all be good things. Titles are great. Opportunity and responsibility. Income is amazing. The ability to enjoy and steward. Things that I can purchase. Awesome. I love going out on the lake on our boat. There's nothing wrong with those things until those things become the measure of my worth and value. The bigger my boat, the better I am. The more house I have, the cooler I feel. Our worth is not tied to our output. As a matter of fact, the Bible is as clear as can possibly be that every bit of our worth, every bit of our value has already been not only defined, but secured for all eternity. And that's the result of Christ sacrificing himself on the cross for us. You see, in that great exchange, as they call it, when Christ died for us, his worth and value was imputed upon us. This means that we will never be worth any more than we already are, never be worth any less than we already are. And if you're leading your family in God's word, if you're leading your family in your pursuit of Christ and encouraging them to do the same, they will not tie your worth to them in the things that you can earn for them either. They will tie your worth to them in who you are in Jesus Christ as well. You see, too often what happens is we start off in our relationship, we start off in our marriage, shaking all the things that we've done and do and will do in front of our soon-to-be spouse, and then they become accustomed to that, and then that's how they see us. We mislead them into tying our worth to something different and far less valuable than Christ. So our worth can't be tied to our output. That's how we ground ourselves in our faith and protect this pursuit of freedom. Authentic in action. We've got to show up at home the way we show up at work. It's rare that I run across an entrepreneur that is in my sphere, circle, the clients that I work with, those that I surround myself, the buddies that I hang out with. It's rare that I encounter a founder or an entrepreneur who does not show up on purpose every day for work. They try to get after it. They're hustling hard. They're working at it. They're continuing to stress themselves. I mean, they're doing all these incredible and amazing things to try and build an elite business because that's how they're wired. But for some reason, they're not showing up at home the same ways. It's a more difficult measuring stick, that's for sure. I mean, if you're pursuing $1 million business, the $1 million is the measuring stick. Or a $10 million business, the $10 million number is the measuring stick. At home, it's a little bit more difficult. This is why we work through our 5 pillars of greatness. This is why we have key indicators around what it looks like to be a man of greatness with your covenant connections. Because we want to make sure that we set marks of success, marks of greatness in our relational capacity, in our relationships. So we know what a man of greatness looks like as a husband. We know what a man of greatness looks like as a father. So that way you can show up on purpose every day for your wife and your kids the same way that you show up on purpose every single day for your business. And finally, purposeful in pursuit. In order to reframe and reveal what's preventing true freedom, that's going to free us up, by the way, again, to be way more successful than we are right now. Yes, even professionally. We have to be purposeful in our pursuits. Our legacy, we should recognize this, that our legacy is forged in a much greater way at the dinner table than it is at the conference table. Man, you need to show up well at work. The professional sphere of this world is in desperate need of men of Christian greatness. We have lost a lot of ground that was laid earlier on in the history of this country by great men of faith. And that has been replaced by all kinds of money-hungry, manipulative, nonsensical men. Sometimes even in the name of God, but they're chasing things that are anything but of God. And so I want to see far more men, Christian men, succeed professionally in this world, build incredible businesses, make tons of money, enjoy that money and give it away. I want to see all that happen for their own good and the glory of God. But at the end of the day, God calls us to our family before he calls us to our profession. And we need to recognize that that is the first legacy we are to forge. That again, we need to be purposeful in pursuit, and we need to appropriately prioritize those things. This is why we lay out the 5 pillars of greatness the way that we do, that it's faith, that it's relationships, that it's personal health, that it's finances, and then it's business. And we've laid that out intentionally because I believe that God calls us to those things primarily in that order. And even the finances things we actually call stewardship, and there's a lot more to that, but I can get into that another day. Men, we must be purposeful in pursuit of the roles that God calls us to. And you are a husband before you are a founder. You are a father before you are an entrepreneur. Never forget it and give everything to it. Your greatest legacy will be lived out through the people that you love and lead now. And yes, that is your employees. Yes, that is your clients. Yes, that is your colleagues. Yes, that is your peers in business. But first and foremost, that is your wife and that is your kids. Men, wake up. Let's do this. And you may be asking yourself, okay, Ryan, well, how do I do this? How do I ultimately show up for my family in this way? How do I buy back my freedom starting at home first? Well, let me ask you this question. Where does family get the short version of you? At night? On the weekends? Do you never participate in one of your kids' school day activities? Do you constantly miss games? I'm not saying you have to be at every school function, that you have to go to every practice and every game. That's not realistic. You know, my wife and I, we've gone through different seasons of this, or I should say I have gone through different seasons of this as my wife has been able and much more faithful to participate. But you know, when I started in business for myself back in 2011, November of 2011 was when I started this business. I had to work really hard. My wife was staying home with both of our kids. We were committed to doing that. We were committed to doing everything we could to keep her home for as long as humanly possible, to not just care for our kids in the home, but to participate in school day activities, to be there for practices, whether it was dance, whether it was swim, whether it was water polo, extracurricular activities, whatever it would be. And we understood, we agreed, Michelle and I, that meant that I was going to have to work more and I was going to miss some things. But what I started to notice is it got easier for me to excuse not showing up for some of those things. I mean, I love my daughters and I love seeing them enjoy life. I love seeing them succeed in the things that they're good at and love doing. But I just found it easier and easier to do that. And so particularly as they got into high school, my second one is in the middle of high school right now, should be a junior, I started committing more consistently to showing up for their games, for their matches, for their meets, which meant that I was going to have to cut out early from work. And I tried to do that as often as possible. And I felt like I did a pretty dang good job. Now, my wife nailed it. She was there all the time. She would watch some practices. She went to almost every single game, even would travel to other cities to go to games. I wasn't always able to do that, but man, I showed up as often as I possibly could because an extra 2 hours in the office was not worth me being able to see my daughter swim, knowing that she only had so many years left to be able to do that. And then I would never be able to see her do that again. I didn't want my kids to get the short version of me as I was building some possibility of a future for them. I want to build a future for them, but they needed me a lot more now. So where is your family potentially getting the short end of you? The dinner table? On the weekends? So here's a simple challenge for you. Plan one intentional midweek date or family experience over the next 30 days. What does this mean? Well, this means you're going to have to take a day off. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just needs to be focused presence, which is also going to mean no work email, no work text messages, no work phone calls, no CEO hat, just the man that they want more than anything. Just one day. Take him to the park. Take him to a museum. Go to Disneyland. That's a little expensive, but whatever it is, take them all out to a really amazing lunch. You know, one of my buddies, he works from home and it's hard for his wife because she's home. Their kids are, one's in high school, one's out of high school. So they're gone most of the time, especially during the day. And so it's just him and his wife in the house, but he's in his office. He has a role and a job in which it requires him to be in front of the computer from about 6 o'clock in the morning until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon every single day. And it's really hard for her because she knows he's there, but he's not really there. And it was really weighing on her, which then started weighing on him. And I said, dude, could you imagine if you just sat down at the dinner table or at the kitchen table and had lunch with her once a week, right in the middle of your day, like literally just hit, like, I know that would be crazy and that could be really hard because of your job. What about even just once a month? Order in or make her some lunch. So I'm challenging you to that, men, to be a man of greatness in your family, to plan that midweek intentional date, intentional family experience. Could be with your wife, could be with your wife and kids, maybe just with your kids. Sometime in the next month, sometime in the next 30 days in which you can fully commit and take that day off and go completely invest in them. Look it. You don't have to stop building a successful business. You don't need to escape your life. You just need to live it fully. That means as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a follower of Christ, and yes, as a founder of your business. If you want to lead your business well, start by leading your family well. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with men and they've hired me to help them professionally. I've seen a gap in them personally. We've invested more time into the personal side of things. And as the result of that, they've seen significant financial growth in the business by not changing anything in the business, but by completely reframing and reinvesting into the personal life at home. By the way, the guy that I shared with you earlier that I met with at this conference, that told me that his wife came to him and wanted a divorce. A couple of years later, she saw huge changes in him. He invested more into himself. He started valuing his family more, his kids more. And one day she came to him. He said to me that one day he called her and said, hey, he says, I want to let you know I'm on my way. I'm going to come pick up the kids to go to church. And she said, no, not today. And he's like, what? It's my day to take them to church. And she said, no, you're not going to come pick them up today. She says, I'm going to bring them to church and we're going to go to church together. That led to them moving back in together and getting remarried. And as I talked to his younger son, he shared with me the transformation he's seen in his dad. So it wasn't just his dad telling me, it wasn't just my new friend telling me about his transformation. His son has seen the transformation in his father and seen what it's done. And as the result of that, this man is now living with a newfound freedom. And the legacy that he's passing along to his son to live with a newfound freedom is unbelievable. And as the result of that, both he and his son are building incredible careers, incredible businesses in this new season of life. Men, we can do this. We need to do this. And you may be saying to yourself, well, I'm on my own. I'm alone. I just don't have the community around me. Then DM me. Find me on Instagram. Comment on one of my YouTube videos. Find me on X, find me on LinkedIn. All those links are in the show notes. DM me. And let's talk about how we get you engaged into our community, our Men of Greatness community, to help you walk this journey. Because I don't want to see you lose ground in your business, but more so, I don't want to see you lose ground in your marriage. God is calling you to greatness in both. And I believe that you can do it. If this message was of value to you today, if this video, this podcast, which goes to both, was of value to you today, would you please share it with another man that you think may be struggling in the same way, or just another founder? Maybe you have no idea. You've never had this conversation, but you're like, hey, I listened to this message. It resonated with me as an entrepreneur. It resonated with me as a founder. I think you should check it out too. Would you please forward the YouTube video, the podcast link, Spotify, iTunes, wherever it is that you're listening? Would you please share this with somebody else? This message needs to be spread far and wide, not because I'm saying it, but because I'm seeing and hearing guys experiencing it. Together, we have a far greater chance to become the men that God has called us to be. So let's not leave one man alone as we journey toward the greatness that God calls us to. Thank you guys so much. Cannot wait to share with you next week. In the next episode, we're going to be sharing why money doesn't fix the problem, this weight that we're feeling, and what to do instead. Again, this is not about an either or. I'm not going to tell you stop pursuing financial success. That's ridiculous. We need to continue to build our businesses. But there's a way that we can both and it that's both healthy and healing to the struggles that we're feeling. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you listening. Like, share, subscribe, do all those things. Peace.